All right. Today I wanted to talk about top assets by market cap. Before we get into that, just wanted to show a quick chart of Bitcoin at almost $75,000. After the election, Bitcoin surged to just over 76 and is sitting pretty at around 75,000. Obviously, this is a new all-time high. Um, Now, if you want one Bitcoin, it will cost you about 75,000 US dollars. This means that 1% of a Bitcoin will cost you approximately $750. And if you want a tenth of a Bitcoin, that will cost you roughly 7,500 US dollars. And you can see that the amount of US dollars needed to buy Bitcoin, a whole Bitcoin, just goes up and up. Um, as you can see on this chart. So I want to talk about top assets by market cap because I think this puts things into perspective and a lot of people may not be, up to speed on this. This does change pretty regularly. Of course, we have here at the top gold as the top asset by market cap. Gold has a market cap of about $18 trillion, which is quite high. Gold has had a very large run up, not just year to date, but over time, you could see that gold price, sorry, this is a short-term view. Um, all right, here you go. Gold price performance USD. So gold is up 15.5% over the past 6 months. Over the past year, it's up 37%, which is astronomical for gold. You can see silver actually slightly outperformed, but still, these returns are absolutely nuts. Um, yep, I think that beat the S&P 500 return pretty close. So you could see gold has the number one spot. I think central banks are accumulating a lot of gold. I think sound money is, we're being reminded that sound money is important in an age where money just, is spoken into existence or is typed into existence. The price of an ounce of gold is around $2,700. I think it was as high as 2,800 not that long ago. Um, Still extremely high. But the world puts about $18 trillion of monetary value in gold. And this is more, you know, than everything else. We don't see, like real estate listed here or like all of the US or like all of equities. But as far as top assets go, you could see all assets, including public companies, precious metals, cryptocurrencies, and ETFs. Gold is number one, and it's not even close. Gold has been used as a store of value for thousands of years. Gold is relatively scarce and is difficult to produce. Um, there is some utility. That's not really what gives it value so much, is that it's durable, sort of portable depending on how much you have. Um, some weaknesses with gold is that it is not very divisible. You can't really, chip off some of your gold to pay for, some eggs or a cow or a book, whatever you want to buy, a computer. Additionally, gold, there has been issues of centralization where people want to buy gold and instead of buying physical gold, they will buy, paper gold through an ETF and they don't exactly have the gold and, you know, they can just issue more gold paper than actual gold because, who knows how much gold is above ground. Who knows how much has yet to be mined. We find, countries find deposits of gold all the time, and we just don't know how much is really there. So it's hard to say how rare it really is. But still, $18 trillion is obviously a lot of money. It is more than everything else on this chart right now. Um, so that's a bit about gold. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. People don't really need too much of an explanation there. Moving on down. So in a change of events, we see NVIDIA as the second top asset by market cap at about $3.6 trillion. NVIDIA has been on an astronomical rise recently, outperforming pretty much everything. You could take a look at NVIDIA on Google really quickly. The price in the past 5 years, I think, has done something like a 28x, something like that. Let's see. Yep, 28x. So, and they just split the stock, but one share of NVIDIA stock is $145.61. This is an all-time high. I think after the election, we just saw an intraday high a little bit higher at 146.16, but you could see the trend year to date has tripled. Um, so if we go back here, NVIDIA's market cap at the beginning of the year was around $1 trillion. I remember when NVIDIA first crossed the $1 trillion market cap, everyone thought it was overpriced. Everybody thought that there's no way. And now you can see that NVIDIA's market cap is higher than all these other names that you may have thought were, at the very top. And as this is pretty recently. I think one other time NVIDIA flipped to become the biggest company in the world by market cap. But part of what makes this pretty interesting is that how quickly this rose. You could see these other ones here. NVIDIA was lower than all of these at the beginning of the year. Apple and Microsoft usually fight for that top spot, but NVIDIA is digitizing, um, you know, like so many things. These GPUs that they make, it really just allows for people to, generate through generative AI text, video, pictures, really changing the game in a lot of ways. And, companies are buying their NVIDIA chips, they're training their AI. They want to make, AI factories. Their new chips are absolutely insane. How much of this is hype versus, real value has yet to be seen. But as we scroll down, these other players, many of them are buying a lot of NVIDIA products, propping up that demand. My computer has an NVIDIA chip in it, so there's that too. But NVIDIA's kind of been the darling, and that's how we see it at this number one spot. Um, but who knows how long that's going to last? We will see. Next up, Apple. I don't think that needs much of an explanation. $3.36 trillion. The Apple has just done a great job with the iPhone, just collapsing cameras, flashlights, mail all into a small handheld portable device for everyone in the world. I'm not going to go down all of these, but you get the picture. Microsoft, enterprise software, things like Outlook, Excel, Windows, Amazon, digitizing, shopping experience. They have overnight shipping. They even have same-day shipping now. Don't ask me how. But these companies are all valued in the trillions of dollars. We have Saudi Aramco. Um, we have silver at 1.754 trillion. And what do you see at number 9? We see Bitcoin at 1.48, almost $1.5 trillion. Now, Bitcoin's a lot younger than all of these other assets. It is pretty impressive to see Bitcoin here, just under silver. It did flip silver for a while, I think earlier in the year, but silver's been on a pretty solid run. So right now it's just under silver at $1.48 trillion. We've never seen an asset go from 0 to $1.48 trillion in 15 years before. You could see that Bitcoin has a higher market capitalization than Meta, Berkshire Hathaway, TSMC, Tesla, Broadcom, Eli Lilly, JP Morgan, Walmart. So really just, I've seen Bitcoin climb up this list, and the rate that it grows, it just will continue to climb up this list as more and more money flows into it. We just had an election here in the United States, and you could see that there is support for a national reserve of Bitcoin following Trump's victory here. This is US Senator Cynthia Lummis, who's really trying to get this going with a plan to acquire a million BTC over 5 years. The Strategic Reserve aims to reduce the national debt by half by 2045 and position the U.S. as a financial innovation leader. So you can see her post on X, Twitter, yesterday about this. 1 million is a lot. That is about 4 or 5%, something like that, of the entire supply. And this would cause, game theory to really take off. And, you know, they're not talking about doing this with anything else. Of course, there is a reserve of gold, but this is just such a fixed supply, and the amount of Bitcoin that's going to be coming in the coming years and decades is going to be so low that it just makes sense to do this now if you're going to do it. Because we're already seeing this as $75,000. I mean, let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart again. 2 years ago was this whole FTX debacle, wasn't it? 2 years ago, today, I can't really get it. But you can see that on November 12th, 2022, Bitcoin was about $17,000. I was stacking down here a little bit. I mean, I've been stacking just this whole, I don't really care what price it is, but people who are buying down here, what if they wanted to acquire the strategic reserve of Bitcoin down here? They'd get like 4 to 5 times as much Bitcoin. Now it's 4 to 5 times harder. Same with, people like you and me trying to acquire Bitcoin. It's just going to take, 4 or 5 times more money. But no one wanted it down here. Everyone was afraid. People are calling for 10K. And really, the longer they wait for this, the more difficult it's going to be. But we'll see what happens. I mean, this would definitely be a game changer. Bitcoin's getting more and more, quote unquote, approved and normalized in these bigger circles in the halls of power. And we'll see what happens there. Now, these stocks, a lot of the reason they're so high up in market cap is because they are so high in market cap. People buy the S&P index, and of course, I think around 30% of the money, say you put $1 in the S&P 500, think around 30% of that goes into these top stocks. So I think you get 6 or 7% Microsoft, 6 or 7% Apple, same with Nvidia, Amazon, Alphabet shares as well. Um, so a lot of this market cap and value that the market places on this is just because of the weighted nature of the S&P 500. So are these companies really worth that much money? Um, who knows? Bitcoin's not part of an index, so all the money coming in is just, real demand for the S&P. Usually a lot of people recommend just buying the S&P because you're getting all of these, nice stocks. But I'm going to pull up this chart, Bitcoin versus S&P 500 historical performance. So this is a linear scale. It's not very helpful. Well, I mean, I guess depending on how you want to look at it. Um, and even now, oh, this is in euros. Hold on, guys, 1 second. Okay. Um, you could see here the annual returns for Bitcoin versus the S&P 500. Um, and it's just not even close. We look at 2020, Bitcoin was up 304%. S&P still had a good year at 18%. But most people are putting their money in something like the S&P 500 because they want exposure to these top assets. However, if you look at the performance each year, for the most part, Bitcoin just completely destroys it. And then once every 4 years or so, it just completely crashes and underperforms. And this is your shot. This is your shot to pick up, here, down here, at a discount. Um, when things are on sale, so you can acquire more. And I think this is like January through December, these returns, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but it's hard to argue with these numbers. I think as people hold Bitcoin, as it gets more normalized, if there's a strategic reserve, whether there is or not, is not necessary for this to happen. But people are going to want to take advantage of this. Um, Bitcoin's not really the wild, wild west it used to be. It's still considered speculative. Um, it's still considered, you know, risky, and people are, scared to put money in it, but scared money don't make money. um, it's easy to put your money in the S&P index and still generate a solid return, but these numbers don't lie. I think this is going to continue, um, because I just think the value of Bitcoin priced in dollars, it's just um, underpriced even at 75,000. Looking at this another way, is this website priced in Bitcoin 21? Let's hit refresh on this. This shows the price of things in Bitcoin. So we talk about inflation. Um, Obviously, inflation is destroying people's purchasing power. You can see here, um, the purchasing power of a dollar since 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act created a central bank with the ability to manage the country's money supply. That's another way of saying printing money. Um, and this only goes down. This is outdated also. This is only up to 2020. US money supply grew by 3.8 trillion in 2020, equal to 20% of all dollars ever created. This doesn't look like it's winning. This is not what winning looks like. In 1913, a dollar could buy you 13 Hershey's chocolate bars. This now costs around $26. I think these prices are even a little low. 1929, 10 rolls of toilet paper for $1 now costs $15. Let's go to 1997, 4 grapefruits. I think 161 is a little cheap too, but this used to be $1. And we just see the absolute destruction of the value of this. If you're holding your money here, you are losing. Um, Whereas if you put your money in Bitcoin, instead of losing money every year, you are getting these types of returns, 59, 305, 94, 155. When it goes down, you buy it, and that makes these returns for you go even higher. Now, we talked about gold and the S&P. Um, you could see here that the S&P 500 is 53% cheaper in Bitcoin compared to a year ago. So even though the S&P 500's gone up, 35% or whatever, it's still half off because the money you have is gaining value instead of collapsing into irrelevance. Um, Same with gold, even though gold's been up 30 something percent, you can see that it's almost 70% cheaper than a year ago if you're buying it in Bitcoin. And a United States median new house, we hear about like affordability issues with housing all the time. However, over the past year, the price of it's actually gone down 75% if you use money that is going up in value, because of course, if Bitcoin goes up to $500,000, it is going to be a lot easier for you to afford a house because your money is that much more valuable compared to the house, even if it's rising in value. Compared to Bitcoin, it is just trending towards zero. You could see other things here: crude oil, natural gas, platinum, palladium, silver, um, agricultural, we have beef, things like that. So as people realize this and as inflation gets worse due to money printing, people will flock to something that provides a return above inflation. Um, and right now, the world is putting their money in gold, they're putting it in big tech, they're putting it in silver, and at number 9, they're putting it in Bitcoin. Now, what happens when Bitcoin becomes, flips silver? What happens if Bitcoin flips everything except gold and it's just right up here? I think at that point, it'll only be a matter of time if it flips everything else that it would then take the number 1 spot and flip gold. An $18 trillion market cap for Bitcoin would be over 10x from here. A little bit more, maybe we're looking at $800,000 Bitcoin. And by the time it does flip gold, I would think that this number would be quite a bit higher, meaning that the Bitcoin price would be a bit higher than that at the time of becoming number 1. Um, and if it becomes the top asset by market cap, money will just keep flowing in because it's a Veblen good. The higher this number goes, the more people will want to buy it, the more impressive it is, the more legitimate and established it is. Um, and a lot of these assets increase in price because this money is just created out of nowhere. Um, the US dollar used to be backed by gold, as we could see on this chart, before it was criminalized and the gold standard was abandoned in 1971. Um, and you could just see the quick, rapid decline here. This is never going to be paid back. What's going to happen is this. The United States can either default on the debt, which it won't, or it could, they call it service the debt, but they're not servicing anything. They're just not defaulting. This would be like if you had $1 million and you were just borrowing on another credit card to pay off your $1 million of debt, paying off the interest. Um, you're paying $1 trillion just to not default. The government doesn't have enough money for this. You can see their income tax revenue up here, all of their tax revenue, defense, war, social security, Medicare, Medicaid. They do not have enough money to pay for all of this. So they have to borrow the money. This is the difference. As this grows, so does all of these, particularly the interest on the debt. And there will just come a point where, they're not going to default. They're just going to print more and more and more and more and more and more money. And this will just drop down and collapse. And assets priced in this currency will just continue to rocket up. It is harder to make gold than dollars. It is harder to make silver than dollars. Um, it is harder to make Bitcoin than dollars. And the world will realize that. The world is already starting to realize that and shifting towards these harder forms of currency, but it's only a matter of time before more and more goes into Bitcoin. If you guys like this, please like the video, subscribe, and I'll come out with some more updates soon. Thank you.